Welcome to the Greenlight Investor for the week ending January 15th, 2016. Our goal at the Greenlight Investor is to provide a unique resource to help make managing your 401k both a simple and easy process. We do this with a simple worksheet that uses red, green, and yellow cells to help you decide when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell. This presentation is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as personal investment advice. The examples shown are exactly that. They're examples of how you can use this worksheet as an additional resource to help you manage choices within your 401k. Please refer to your own investment policy to make certain that the choices you make are appropriate for both your investment time horizon as well as your understanding and acceptance for taking risks in financial markets. Let's go ahead and go into our worksheet. On the left side, you'll see that we have the investment choices available to you. At the top of the column, we have the fund number. This column will show the symbol. We have the fund name and a brief description of each of the funds. At the top of this group, we have the core investments, which are your index funds. They're a good base for any portfolio. As we scroll down, we'll go into the satellite investments. These are additional investments you can build around your core investments. We have fixed incomes, U.S. growth, U.S. equity funds, international funds, and sector funds. Center section of this worksheet, we highlight the performance of each of the funds for the year. We track them on a week-over-week basis, and what we'll show are the closing price, month-to-date return, the quarter-to-date return, and the year-to-date return. This is important because it lets you stay ahead of the curve as far as seeing how your fund choices are performing relative to the overall market and the other choices that are available to you within your 401k plan. And finally, we have our third piece of information. That's the current weekly trends for each of the funds available to you. Three columns are really important. Column U, which is the long-term trend for each of the funds. It's either bullish, bearish, or neutral. Bearish means it's trending downward. Neutral means it's sideways or transitioning. And a green cell in that in column U means that it's bullish or generally tending to trend higher. Column V, we show the week-over-week trend change. And what that is it will tell you whether the fund's getting weaker or stronger compared to a week ago. Column W, each week will assign a trend score as to the relative strength of each fund in your 401k. When the trends are positive, you'll see green cells in each of the cells that are positive, and when the trends are negative, you'll see red cells, and when they're transitioning or neutral, you'll see yellow cells. Here's an example of where we've had a few green cells where the trend score has been positive. As it transitioned to a negative number, it had turned red, so it gives you a warning that that's a weakening. And then here we see this past week, the numerical value got significantly lower, so it's showing that the fund is continuing to weaken, and that's verified by the bright red cell in column V. You can look at each of the funds this way, and you can get an idea as to the strength and the long-term trend for each fund. As we scroll down, we'll see we have lots of red, so the trend has not been positive, it's been negative, and we are seeing that the long-term trend is negative. Likewise here, we're seeing 3 full weeks of negative relative strength, as well as more red to the long-term trend scores for each of these. As we go down to our U.S. equity funds, we're seeing we have 2 columns that are very red. They're all red. And we're seeing more red and yellow than we are green. So our long-term trend is again negative, and the relative strength shows that it's continuing to weaken. This is the same case for the international funds. We're seeing 3 weeks where the trend change has been negative, and we're seeing where the numbers have gone much more negative on a week-over-week basis, and our long-term trend is bearish. So again, we're tending to stay out of these funds. And finally, our sector funds, we're seeing 2 full weeks, 2.5 weeks, close to 3, where we've seen a lot of red developing, as well as the values are becoming more negative, which shows that the relative strength is continuing to deteriorate. And we're also seeing the long-term trend is primarily bearish with some transitions in. So with that said, let's go ahead and see how we can use this information to make choices within your 401k plan. To do so, you'll want to go up into the ribbon, you'll click on View, Custom Views, and then look at My Allocations. To highlight that, you click Show, and we'll see the My Allocation section of the worksheet appear on the left side. And this is where you will mirror the actual choices you make in your 401k plan. Remember that to make changes in your choices, you have to go to your website. This is not a link to your website. It's simply a worksheet where you can keep track of the choices you've made within your plan. But it's really a valuable tool so you can see where your investment choices are and when you might be in need of making a change or an adjustment to your investments. Last week we moved everything to the money market, and since the beginning of the year we've seen 2 weeks where we've seen negative relative strength. So with those 2 weeks going negative, that's why we've moved all of the assets to the money market until things change. Whenever we see a negative, a lot of negative red cells in the long-term trend columns, especially when we see 2 or 3 weeks in a row, as well as the long-term trend turning negative in most of the different choices, we'll go into the bear confirmed mode, which means to protect your portfolio. Once we start to see more green cells appear, especially in the early choices, will start in the short-term trend, and then the intermediate and the long-term trend will follow. As we start to see green cells appear in those, that's when we'll be looking to start adding and moving money back into the funds. We'll also be looking for early indications that the market's turning around as we see some of the numerical values in column W turn less negative or start going towards the positive direction. That's a key to seeing that we have a chance to see the market start to strengthen. Bear markets are interesting in that they usually are fast and violent going down, and nobody knows how long they'll last. They might be done as of Friday. They could continue for several weeks or months going forward. So it's important to watch these at least on a week-over-week basis and be aware of when the trends start to change so you can make adjustments that are appropriate for your investment policy and your investment choices to start getting back into the markets. With that said, let's go ahead and see if there's anything that would be of interest to go into this week. As we scroll down our fixed income, we still see a lot of red, and we are completely bearish on the long-term trend, so we're staying away until we start to see more green. This is actually the only area where we are seeing some green. So if there was a place where you had to have money in the market, this would be most likely the most interesting place in the short-term basis. But again, with so much red on the outside, until these numerical values started turning more positive, my inclination is to just stay out of the way of this market. As we scroll down to the U.S. growth and income, again, we're seeing the negative starting to appear again. We'll be looking for green to appear, primarily starting in the short-term trend, but our most important indicator is the long-term trend, so we would like to see some green appear there. As we go down to our U.S. equities, we're again seeing 2 solid weeks of red, so the relative strength has really weakened since we started 2016, and we're seeing lots of red to the left side. So again, with that in mind, we would like to have an allocation of about 30%, but we'll wait until we start to see some green and hopefully some positive trends starting, and at that point we'll move back into this market. International funds are the same situation. We've seen about 3 weeks in a row, and we're seeing all bearish signals down the left side, the long-term trend, So with that in mind, there's no reason for us to be in this market. We'll be looking for this trend to change, and when it does show signs of change, we'll re-enter the market. And finally, our sector funds, we're seeing lots of red, as well as lots of red on the long-term, short-term, and intermediate-term trends. So with that said, that's the reason we have the bear market indicator at the top of the worksheet, and the reason we are showing our allocation to be 100% into the money market at this time. That's very conservative, so if you decide to do this, make sure that's in line with your investment policy, and make sure you have a plan to get back into the market quickly when you do start to see green lights, as well as the other resources and indicators that you use to make choices within your 401k plan. Let's go back to our home page. We'll click on View, Custom Views, and let's go with the performance columns. We'll click Show. And with that said, I'd like to thank you for spending the time this week to go over this worksheet. I think it's really important several weeks coming up to look at this market. Be aware of when the market does start to turn. I think the green light indicators on this worksheet can be a helpful tool in addition to what you're already using to help you spot when the market's starting to turn positive. Again, thank you again for taking the time to visit this worksheet and go over your portfolio. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to updating again in another week. Thank you.